let's go talk about stuff that we've done this week on the week of March the 7th, where you, I believe, Lewis, you have played a rather special game from Hazelight Studios, created by a father of two children. Well, rather, his team and a father of two children, director Joseph Fares, who is very controversial. Not really controversial, more like he's just a loud guy who knows what he wants and what he does. And
Yeah.
he's done games like A Way Out, I Love Brothers, that's his first game for the studio. And then he did, what was the other one?
It Takes Two?
It Takes Two. I was gonna say a Split Two or something, something marriage, divorcee the game or something. And then now you had the pleasure of playing, finishing, and reviewing Split Fiction, which is basically a story about two writers who are stuck in a virtual world. One loves fantasy, one loves sci-fi, and they have to work together. Tell me more about this game.
I mean, there's so much to say about it, to be honest. I think with my review, I kind of went with the narrative of that, like, the days of, playing offline at home, on the same console with like friends or your siblings or whatever, are days like that are far gone now, because now we're fortunate enough to have the ability to just play like games from our own setups, from the comfort of our own homes and whatnot. And I feel like while that is convenient, and yes, there's a certain magic in that they being able to play offline on the same console, in the same house, on the same screen, there was a certain magic to it, right? And I feel like Hazelight's been the pioneer for trying to recapture that type of magic for the longest time now. Yes, obviously they have the ability to play most of their games pretty much like online with friends, but I feel like the real experience comes from being able to play it with somebody, right? In person, right next to you. So it's honestly a really great game. But to get started on talking about it, it is much like other Hazelight games. It's very character driven. A lot of the story revolves around the characters, and the embargo date's already finished for pretty much spoilers on the kind of the experiences that these characters go through. Even if I had the chance to spoil it as well, I don't think I would go down that route, because it is so, the story is captivating, and it does the game kind of rides on that story, as well as the actual two-player experience as well. So basically you follow Mia Hudson and Zoe Foster, two writers who are ambitious and kind of are seeking to get themselves published as writers. Mio is really, really into sci-fi, and Zoe is the direct opposite of her and is into fantasy. But it's not just their tastes as well that are like opposite. It's also kind of who they are. Like, Mio is very much a kind of cold, aloof, and just kind of keeps to herself type of person. Whereas Zoe's very much an extrovert, very outgoing, and sickeningly optimistic sometimes as well. And I think that was probably the first hurdle that I had to get over when playing this game, was, Hazelight is known for creating characters that that really captivate you, and I felt like they, at first at least, at least with my first impressions of both Mio and Zoe, it kind of did the opposite, and it rubbed me kind of the wrong way that these are like caricatures of people, over exaggerated caricatures of people, and it was really, really hard to really see where the story was going at the start. And because of that, the story overall is very much a slow burn. And if you're able to kind of get past that, then it really does reward you for it. Because over time, you kind of, maybe it's just through osmosis and just having to play these characters nonstop for hours on end. But you do grow attached to them, and you do kind of start to realize, like, oh, like, okay, this person's this type of person. Like Mio's, okay, there's a reason for why Mio's so cold and aloof and so pessimistic. And then Zoe, you slowly find out why Zoe is so outgoing and extroverted. And It's these traumas that really, you know, uh, sorry, the game really explores these traumas that these two characters have gone through, and you can see that in the level design. It's not very blatant, but a lot of the level designs or the themes of the levels are surrounded around the traumas that both Mio and Zoe have gone through, right? Which I think is, like, in hindsight, after playing it as well, it is an ingenious way of kind of mixing a story into what is essentially just a platforming game, right? So yeah, I mean, those were my initial impressions of it, at least going into it. And there's twists and turns, which I definitely think you have to play to really recognize it, to really appreciate the twists and turns of the game and whatnot. But yeah, it was a great game. I had an absolute blast, especially because my girlfriend and I were looking to play It Takes Two for a while, and it just so happened that Split Fiction fell on my lap.
All right, talk a bit more about the gameplay. Like, do the characters control differently based on their personalities, or is it a third person? Do you do a lot of shooting? Do you do platforming? All the above? Or
yeah,
go on with that.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, it's a third-person game. It's a third-person. I think an action-adventure platformer would probably be one of the best ways to describe it. But the thing is, it bounces between so many different types of platforming as well. There's I think the most common transition that you'll probably find yourself in is where it will be like kind of like imagine you're on a train and you have to kind of a moving train, and then you kind of have to like make your way towards the front of the train. That's what most of the levels kind of feel like. But then there'll be sections where it will switch to like a side view, and then it becomes like a side-scrolling platformer for a bit, and a lot of the mechanics are the same person to person. One character will have like a certain ability, for example, let's say she has an energy sword. For example, Mio has an energy sword, but she also has the ability to kind of change her point of gravity as well. So like she can make it so that she can stick to walls or stick to the ceiling, and that really that I remember during that section that kind of it did trip me out for a bit, and it almost gave me a little bit of vertigo because of how disorientating it can be. Because
that's all gravity levels are.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other hand, during that section, Zoe has like a gravity whip, so that she can lift things up that you wouldn't normally be able to lift up. And there were some sections of that particular level where it really got you thinking. There was a specific puzzle that my girlfriend and I were stuck on for a while. It wasn't even really much of a puzzle. It was kind of like it was right after a side story, and you kind of had to figure out where to go next. And the solution to that was for me to for Mio to go inside of a portable toilet, and Zoe would throw her like across a gap. And I didn't really think of that because you just see the porta potties as just a part of the environment, so you would never have assumed that. So it's a game that really gets you thinking. The puzzles themselves as well they're not necessarily hard, but they do get you thinking, and it is very much, it's not like a you don't have to open your third eye to figure out what this puzzle means, right? It's very much a casual puzzle game where it does take a little bit of brain power, and just enough so that just enough so that you might not get it straight away, but maybe after like thinking for about 5 to 10 minutes and like proper like examining your surroundings, when you finally do solve it, it's extremely satisfying.
Nice. This sounds like a really fun game, and you can check out more on our review on our website, kakuchopurei.com. I believe you gave it a very high score, like 80 out of 100. Like, this sounds like a really good game, good co-op and all that. Were there like any flaws that got to you, despite the fact that it is a pretty awesome experience, especially with a partner? Oh, and I believe you can also play this game online too, right, with other people?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, as for critique, sorry, there was some bugs, like visual bugs here and there. Nothing too game breaking. Like there was a flying section where a couple of flags glitched out, and then they just tore across the entire screen, so you couldn't. There was like for a split second you can't see anything, and that is kind of annoying. But it wasn't to me, it didn't really ruin the experience. It just kind of ruined the immersion. But nothing. I wouldn't say that really added to the score. I feel like what really contributed to it was the fact that it was so slow paced at the beginning, and you
Takes a
really
while to get across, right?
yeah, because you don't exactly know what's happening at the start. You just know that these are two people who want to get published, and they go to a company to get published, and it turns out, oh, we're just doing a quick little experiment. Can you jump in our simulations? And it just turns out that these simulations bring stories to life, and so the authors can kind of live through their stories. And that's kind of all you get for like maybe the first 3 hours. You learn little tidbits here and there, little secret agendas, but there's not much to it, and I feel like that it really lacked a captivating factor to it, and the beginning at least very heavily relies on the gameplay. And the gameplay, I feel like the gameplay could have sped up a bit faster, because it's only about halfway through. Maybe I'd probably say maybe about a third into it, probably actually, is when the gameplay starts to build in depth and tempo as well, and that's where it gets really, really interesting. And I feel like that's when I realized I was hooked. And I feel like it could have maybe that gap, that period of time where you're kind of questioning what makes this game good, what is good about this game, that gap where you're wondering could have been shortened in terms of a time span, whether it be introducing more depth and more features earlier on, or by maybe introducing certain narratives that kind of get you asking more questions earlier on, because like the narrative does make you ask questions, but it makes you ask very vague questions, and they don't give you enough clues here and there to be asking more questions. So
Questions
so yeah,
about your playstyle, or about personality, or about the characters themselves?
I think all of the above. I think the
Like
play
an
style.
introspective kind of thing, right? Is it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like the play style. Again, I think I hit it on the head there actually, which was just like it just needs to be the depth of it could have been introduced faster, and I think this is me thinking from just a general consumer's perspective, which is like, say you get the chance to play it without having to buy the full game. I unless you stick through maybe the first maybe 3-4 hours, you don't really see anything that really drives you to continue wanting to play, other than possibly the experience of having to play it in person with somebody next to you. I feel like that's really what carried it for me at the beginning.
Right.
But not everybody has that opportunity as well, right? Not everybody has a console or people to play with in person, right? So I feel like that it really does it. I think because of its reliance on that at the beginning, at the initial parts of the game, it was really, really hard to give it anything more than an 8.
Fair enough.
Or
fair
sorry,
enough.
80.
Yeah. And for those who actually are looking for friends, they can go. I guess there was an advertisement for that. I remember reading about that. Joseph Fares said that, hey, join our Discord, HazelightStudios.com, if you want to find friends for Split Fiction. So the game is on sale right now, March the 7th. At this point in time, it's for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. When you were playing it on your PlayStation, like, were there any slowdown or whatnot in the split screen, or it worked fine?
No, I think I noticed there was some frame drops here and there at like when it was transitioning from cutscene to gameplay, because there are quite a number of quote unquote seamless transitions. So it was only really then you noticed really much of a performance drop. But other than that flying section I mentioned before, where like the flags tore across the screen, there was nothing really that I didn't notice any like any faults in the graphics or the performance or anything, to be honest.